All right, great. Well, thank you all so much for taking the time out of your busy schedules tonight to attend and participate in tonight's event. Before we begin, I just wanted to pass it over to Aaron for a second, because I heard that there are some birthday wishes in order tonight.
That's right. Tonight happens to be Renaldo Hudson's birthday, and I was strongly encouraged to play a little Stevie Wonder. And then do that, gotta take my headphones off to make that happen. And let's see here. I don't know if you can hear that. But happy birthday.
Thank you.
I have one last thing here for you. So this is Alice Kim said I had to get some candles, so I got candles. I didn't have any cake. But happy birthday, Renaldo. You want to blow these out? All right. So if everyone wants to send a little happy birthday wishes to Renaldo in the chat, he'd greatly appreciate it. We all would.
Thank you, Aaron. I thought that would be, I mean, what better way to kickstart the event tonight? And on just such a happy note, and this is Renaldo's 5th event today, by the way. So not only is he working on his birthday, but this is number 5. So thank you so much for being here. And I'll introduce Renaldo in a little bit as well, in a little bit more detail. But thank you so much, Aaron, for kicking it off with a little music, a little Stevie Wonder. And Renaldo, happy birthday. So glad that you're here tonight. Okay, this program was made possible. Here's the housekeeping business. This program was made possible through a Healing Illinois grant and sponsored by the Southland Health and Wellness Hour podcast and the College of Arts and Sciences here at Governor State University. I'd like to also extend a thank you to Dr. Andre Merrick, Dean of the College of Arts and Sciences, Dr. Jason Zingsheim, Chair of the Division of Arts and Letters, Dr. Debbie James, Associate Professor of Media Studies and Chair of the Center of Community Media Steering Committee, Stacy Amadeo, Promotions and External Relations Coordinator, who's been absolutely integral to the success of tonight's event, as well as Teresa Booker, who I want to give a special shout out to in IT, who helped make tonight's event possible as well. So thank you all for your support. I'm Rebecca Seifert, Assistant Professor of Art History here at GSU, and I'd like to welcome you all to the event tonight. The initial idea for this program came about last semester when I actually attended a virtual program for International Human Rights Day in December, hosted by the American Friends Service Committee in celebration of this new book, Carving Out Rights from Inside the Prison Industrial Complex. I was really, thank you, Aaron, there's the book. I was really inspired by the important work and message that came out of this project. And it seemed like a great opportunity for us to arrange a related panel discussion to correspond with this course I'm teaching this semester, which is on the art of social justice movements. This week, we're actually studying examples of art related to the criminal justice system and mass incarceration, a topic that has directly or indirectly impacted so many of our students and staff and faculty here at GSU. So we are very fortunate to be here tonight speaking with you all. We're going to hear from each panelist, and I'll pose a few follow-up questions to each panelist after they've had their own chance to speak a little bit about tonight's topics. And then we'll open it up to audience questions at the end. In the meantime, though, you can feel free to post any questions you have in the Q&A box, and we'll keep an eye on that, as well as feel free to use the chat box throughout the event. So without further ado, it is my pleasure to introduce our panelists, Aaron Hughes, Renaldo Hudson, and Ms. Atsia Fair. Thank you all so much for joining us tonight. We will start with Aaron. Aaron has some images that he'll be sharing with us as well during his presentation. So I'll just give you a brief little bio for Aaron. He's an artist, curator, organizer, teacher, anti-war activist, and Iraq war veteran. He's involved in a variety of art and activist projects, including the Prison and Neighborhood Arts Education Project, the Just Seeds Artist Cooperative, About Face, Veterans Against War, and Emerging Veteran Art Movement. His work has been exhibited internationally at institutions including the Museum of Modern Art in New York, and he's been the recipient of numerous awards, grants, and residencies. He's also co-editor of Carving Out Rights from Inside the Prison Industrial Complex, which developed from a class that he taught at Stateville Prison through the Prison and Neighborhood Arts Education Project. Welcome, Aaron.
Rebecca, thank you for that generous and wonderful introduction. And it's really an honor to be here tonight with Renaldo and Atsia. Yeah, it's wonderful to get an opportunity to share this space with you all. So tonight, I'm just going to start by talking a lot about Carving Out Rights, the book. I think it's like a great way to kind of dive into our conversation. So I'm going to share my screen and talk a little bit about this wonderful book that the Prison Neighborhood Arts Project just put out. Carving Out Rights from Inside the Prison Industrial Complex. This book was edited by myself, Sarah Ross, and Tara Betts. It has artwork by Carlos Ayala, Aurelius Bivens, Robert Boyd, Jeffrey Campbell, Alan Christensen, Joseph Dole, Francisco Estrada, Darrell Fair, Salvador Herrera, Alex Kolshin, Juan Luna, Charles McLaurin, Willie McGee, Leonard Miller, Zachary Meeks, Ricky Lee Quezada, and Marshall Stewart. It has text by Benny Rios Denwan, Darrell Fair, Renaldo Hudson, myself, Alice Kim, Barbara Ransby, Christoph Ringer, Sarah Ross, and Meredith Stern. And it has amazing and powerful poetry curated and organized by Tara Betts, and she also contributed a poem. Eric Blackman, Tango Easton Martin, Martina Spada, Torrin A. Greathouse, Tyembi Jess, Timothy Malone, Tony Medea, Zachary Meeks, Nikki Patton, Sonia Sanchez, and Courtney Wright. So as you can tell just by reading all those names, it's a pretty expansive project. And often prison neighborhood arts projects end up being rather expansive. I just wanted to review some of the content in the book just so people were aware. So there's a foreword by Meredith Stern. Meredith Stern is another Just Seeds Artist Cooperative member who started the Universal Declaration of Human Rights print project a number of years ago. And that project specifically inspired the works in this book. I contributed an introduction, Building a Culture of Human Rights from Below. And in that section, I really dive into what does it mean to create art from inside this massive space of oppression? And what does it mean to start to carve out a space of creativity and resistance? And how art becomes this thing that can emerge as a form of cultural resistance to the carceral state. Christoph Ringer talks about the history of human rights and how they've played a very impactful role within different social justice movements. and also touches on, specifically here in Chicago, We Charge Genocide and the legacy of fights for reparations here in Chicago. Rights Not a Privilege, Darrell Fair talks about his thoughts about the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, especially in relationship to his situation. He's currently incarcerated at Stateville Prison. And he's also a Burge torture survivor. And he's somebody that has really been a mentor to me in these classes at Stateville. And I'm really looking forward to hearing from Ms. Fair tonight, because I know that his situation has greatly impacted him and his family and beyond. Reflections, The Teaching at Stateville Prison by Barbara Ransby, a beautiful reflection on what it's like to teach at Stateville Prison. And then this amazing interview by Alice Kim with Renaldo Hudson. And in that just really dives into this whole question is, Renaldo went from being on death row to being on life without parole. And what is this, what is that, how does that relate to human rights? And is that not cruel and inhumane punishment, this idea of death row and then life without parole? And then we have Our Rights Truly Self-Evidenced by Benny Rios Don Juan, and an afterword by Sarah Ross. Getting into the work, many of us in PNAP are inspired by the amazing work of Dr. Burrows, who I'm sure will come up later in this conversation, but she taught printmaking at Stateville for a long time and taught other art classes and writing classes. And she also is if you don't know who she is, she's one of the co-founders of the DeSalvo Museum of African American History in Chicago, and she's also a part of helped co-founded the Southside Community Arts Center. And for a long time, there wasn't printmaking at Stateville. In 2016, after PNAP asked me to teach a class, I asked if I could teach a printmaking class, which meant bringing in printmaking supplies, which was considered very questionable. We ended up being able to get a handful of rollers in, no brayers, no carving tools, no nothing else, no press. And so we ended up making and working on foam blocks, which I will show a little bit later. But if you can see my picture on the side, these foam blocks became the all the work was done on these very just almost like what you might buy meat on at a grocery store. So just reviewing some of the work, we started off by working on patterns. And this is a pattern by Salvador Herrera. This is another pattern by Carla Sayala, which was used for promoting this program tonight. A beautiful piece by Charles McLaurin. Another wonderful piece by Charles. I'm going to show you a handful of his. He's quite a prolific artist, and also I know Renaldo might speak to some of his work because I know that they know each other well. This is called One Feather at a Time, and I think it has a lot of powerful implications. Eternal suffering, not by nature, but by mankind, upon mankind. That's also by Charles McLaurin. And this is a beautiful print by Darrell Fair. It's Now. And his work has been really influential. It's featured multiple times in the book, but also as you'll see at the end of this, talking about the book, it's been out in the streets in a number of murals. This is a work called Freedom by Zachary Meeks. Justice by Francisco Estrada. You see those question marks. Fasted Studying. And that takes us to this Universal Declaration of Human Rights project that this book is based off of. So in PNAP, we often focus on themes, and our theme was around citizenship. And the the Illinois Constitution said the Illinois Departments of Corrections, the purpose of it is to return people to quote unquote useful citizenship. There's all kinds of questions about what useful citizenship means and who's included in citizenship and who's not. People have written a lot about this question of conditional citizenship, especially in relationship to Black and Brown communities and how citizenship is always at question. And so within the class, we began to seek for broader terms of belonging beyond citizenship, because citizenship often resulted in exclusion of different communities. And that took us down a path to the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, which in itself is full of all kinds of contradictions, because the Universal Declaration of Human Rights was crafted by founding states that were involved in settler colonialism, rooted in white supremacy. And what does it mean to like craft this document? At the same time, as mentioned earlier, it's been a document that's been extremely important for many social justice organizations in the fight for justice. And so I'm just going to share some of the articles. This is a print by Marshall Stewart, Article 1, and you'll see it says stolen land. Marshall is indigenous history in Wisconsin. All human beings are born free and equal in dignity and rights. They are endowed with reason and conscience and should act towards one another in the spirit of brotherhood. Article 1. Article 2 was crafted by Willie McGee. Everyone is entitled to all the rights and freedoms set forth in this declaration without distinction for any kind, which is something to hold. What does that mean if this is truly inalienable and universal declaration? Why aren't so many people not afforded these rights, especially those impacted by the carceral system? Everyone has a right to a person, a right to liberty, security of person. This is by Aurelius Bivens. Carlos Ayala, no one shall be held in slavery or servitude, slavery, and the slave trade shall be prohibited in all their forms. In all their forms, let freedom reign. I know many people have connected the history of slavery in this country to the current state of mass incarceration. No one shall be subject to torture or to cruel, inhumane, or degrading treatment or punishment. And I just want to reflect, what does it mean to be sentenced to life without parole? What does it mean to be sentenced to die in a prison? Everyone has the right to recognition everywhere as a person before the law. This is by Aurelius Bivens. It's one of the pieces I think is one of the most powerful. And it's a figure taking off his face. And what does it mean to be faceless before the law? All are equal before the law and are entitled without any discrimination to equal protection of the law. And yet we have this unequal system that often impacts Black and Brown communities disproportionately. This is by Juan Luna. No one shall be subject to arbitrary arrest or detention or exile. And you have this Statue of Liberty and Freedom. Article 10, everyone is entitled to full equality to a fair and public hearing by an independent and impartial tribunal. And I think that that's really telling, considering the figure in front of the judge right now has IDOC and is already labeled, therefore, as a criminal. This piece is by Darrell Fair. Everyone charged with a penal offense has the right to be presumed innocent until proven guilty according to the law in a public trial at which they have had all the guarantees necessary for their defense. And I think that that's rather telling considering his situation. Everyone has the right to freedom of thought and conscience and religion. Charles McLaurin. Everyone has the right to freedom of peaceful assembly and association. Charles McLaurin again. Everyone has the right to freely participate in the cultural life of the community. I know specifically Renaldo talked about this piece in the interview, and what does it mean to be trying to raise questions of what does it mean to have your hands up, and how does that relate to the different protest movements of today. And Ricky Quezada, nothing in this declaration may be interpreted as implying for any state group or person any rights to engage in any activity or perform any act aimed at the destruction of any of the rights and freedoms set forth herein. And yet we know our carceral state on a daily basis violates individuals' human rights. So this work has gone out into the world. This is a window display at P.O. Box. It's been in an exhibition in Wisconsin. And that's the whole part of work of Prison Neighborhood Arts Project, is we believe connecting the neighborhood with artists on the inside and creating and connecting artists on the outside with the artists on the inside. So this back and forth intellectual discourse. I want to come back to this It's Now piece by Darrell Fair, just because that work, along with Charles McLaurin's Wings Patterns and his Faces of Hope, another piece by Darrell Fair, became a mural that was on the west side of Chicago. We had these wonderful paint days where the community came together to paint the murals. We installed them. And I think these are just great another examples. Here's another piece that's in Washington Park. Respect Life, It's Now. And I'm gonna conclude it there. Just encourage people to check out this book, Carving Out Rights, and hopefully that's a good overview of the things that we can talk about.
Thank you. That's great. I was struck by the effectiveness of these prints. I think partially due to the monochrome nature of them. So it's like a very straightforward kind of, combination also of image and text, which has been so key to so much of the activist art that we've looked at in my class so far this semester. So it was really nice to see a lot of different examples from that series. So thank you. I wanted to kind of I have a few questions for each panelist. And so first I wanted to just kind of hear a little bit more about how you got involved in teaching at Stateville and a little bit more about what you've learned through the experience.
Yes, so as I mentioned, I'm an Iraq veteran. That experience made me realize I didn't want to be a part of something destructive. I wanted to be a part of something creative. And that led me down a path of art and activism and trying to find ways to push back against the destruction and oppression in our world. And I was extremely active with a group called Iraq Veterans Against the War in Chicago. And that connected me to people in the abolitionist movement. And in 2016, I believe, Alice Kim invited me to respond to an essay by one of the writers at Stateville Prison. And I made a series of prints for that in the Freedom Dreams exhibition. And after that, they invited me to teach, come teach. And Darrell is a veteran. His name has came up. Charles is a veteran. A number of the people that have been in my classes at Stateville are veterans. And, when I think about the veteran community, I often think about who's not thought of in that community. And to me, that's people like Darrell and Charles and the power of their work. So I kind of came at this from an anti-war perspective. And every day, at the beginning, I didn't really know what abolition meant. I still am learning, what it means. And I'm just grateful for all the ways that people have expressed the generosity to teach, and share with me, especially the artists that I get to work with at the prison. You're muted, Rebecca.
Whoops, thank you. I was just saying, you've kind of touched on this already, but one of my students, Sade, was asking how working in Stateville changed you or influenced you in your everyday life. And it sounds like the two kind of go hand in hand in a lot of ways.
Well, yeah,
So,
yeah. No, go ahead, please.
go ahead. So my second question was, why is it important to allocate space, time, and resources to creative forms of production like visual art, but also poetry or music for people who are incarcerated?
I think it's because if it's multifaceted. One, I think if we're going to understand as a society what the impacts of a carceral state, we got to hear from those that are most impacted by that system. And if we want to understand the prison industrial complex, we need to hear from those that are most impacted from that. And, you know, sometimes that's writing, sometimes that's spoken, but I believe art is a specific power, especially in relationship to things that are so traumatizing, because trauma in itself degrades language and it degrades meaning. And art presents a way to create meaning, create new connections, create new potentials and new relationships that, you know, inspire new ways of thinking. And so to me, I think hopefully we all, you know, we all can start to imagine new ways of thinking about justice, because clearly the system that we have right now isn't just. And so, you know, what does it mean to actually commit to restorative justice? And, you know, I think the justice system we have now is completely, it doesn't equate with human rights. You can't have a carceral state and human rights. And if we believe in human rights, then we need to invest and envision a world of restorative justice.
That's great. Thank you so much. And I look forward to hearing Renaldo's thoughts on this as well, because it kind of reminded me a little bit of the interview that he did in the book. And, you know, one of the points came up along the way about, you know, we're dealing with a broken system here. And then the point came up, well, it's not actually broken. It's operating exactly as it was designed to. So with that, I would like to thank you, Aaron. I would like to now introduce the birthday man, Renaldo Hudson. So Renaldo, I know Aaron had shared a little bit already, but Renaldo had survived a death sentence and life without parole, life without the possibility of parole sentence. He was finally granted clemency and released after 37 traumatic years of incarceration just this past September. So that's part of the reason why this is so exciting, and I'm so glad to be a part of your first birthday after being released. Although he entered prison without the ability to read or write, Hudson was able to overcome this neglect, obtaining multiple certifications, associate's degrees, and a seminary bachelor's degree, all while behind bars. He believes that our society needs to seek out the humanity of every person, regardless of their charge or conviction. He's currently the education director for the Illinois Prison Project, working to end perpetual punishment. And he is a 2021 Illinois Humanities Humanist Fellow and an Artist for the People Practitioner Fellow at UIC. So congratulations, happy birthday, welcome, Renaldo Hudson.
Thank you. I don't even know how to even follow Aaron, like for real, like you gonna do that to me, right? And you're like, okay, Renaldo, now you, what you want to say? Nothing. Look, but first of all, I'm really grateful to be here. Like, I'm excited, like, to spend my birthday with people that want to see change. And so it's not a task. I don't feel like I'm wasting my time. I think this is extremely important. This is extremely important investment. Words are seeds. And so when people talk about the value of words and they talk about the value of art, art can move a heart. And so oftentimes people will be so wrapped up in the brokenness that causes people to commit offenses. and forget that that is someone's child. That is someone's son, someone's mother, someone's brother, someone's sister. And so we have to figure out if we're going to recycle paper, recycle bottles, recycle, everything, why do we dispose of people? Like, I think that that is just insanity at its best. And so I think my job is to remind people of the humanity that can come from a traumatic situation, right? I was counted as an undesirable. In fact, the great state of Illinois said that there was nothing redeemable about Renaldo Hudson, and he would only be a threat to humanity. So here's what we need to do with him: execute him. And so they sentenced me to die by lethal injection. And so by the grace of God, that didn't happen. Governor Ryan ultimately, for whatever reasons people can debate, right? He decided, well, I will not allow another execution, because he did allow an execution to occur under his watch. And it was a guy by the name of Andrew Cocarera. But it was so traumatic, I think, to the governor that he was now responsible for murder. That he said, well, no execution, no more happen under my watch, because I'm looking at my twilight years. And so I think that there's something after this life, and I want to have peace with myself. And so he made a decision, once again, according to his public statements, to say, I will call a moratorium against the death penalty and sentence everyone. Instead of being poisoned by the state, we'll let you die by incarceration. And so I think that was an error, if you ask me, but I think it was also an act of mercy. So they call it dual purpose. I respect the fact that it gave me oxygen to get to the next point, but I also say to those that want to half step and not make full decisions, that we have to remember that people are dying, and that you can't just keep putting off what needs to be done today. That's why I love the work of the Illinois Prison Project. I love the fact that they have a campaign, Brother Aaron, for the veterans. So there's a campaign to do clemencies for veterans that are in prison who've been there 20 years, and they should be home. They served the country, they made a bad decision, but they've done 20 years, let them go, Governor, right? And so show that their service will at least give them a step up and say, you know what, we at least owe this to you. We know you were broken, we know you did something bad, you've acknowledged it, let's get a chance. And so give them a chance. There's also a women's campaign that's coming out of the Illinois Prison Project, clemencies for women, right? Solitary confinement. And so I don't want to just turn this into the clemency hearing or proceedings, but I just want to share that great work. And so those that are interested in seeing real social change and the justice system, really, which is the legal system, not the justice system, right? The legal just us system, right? If you want to see a change, then contact these organizations that are doing the work. That being said, I'm happy that after 37 years from death row to the front door, I was not exonerated, I was liberated. And so I'm grateful that I get to talk about my friends who were left behind and say, I haven't forgotten you. And so listen, art is this. During slavery, people would hide messages through art, right? You have to understand the power of art. When I look at the art of those brothers that are still suffering with life without the possibility of parole, I'm looking for the hidden message. I'm like, yeah, because they still have to be careful. Whatever they say to you all, if you say something that offend corrections, right? Like anything that offend them, that ruffle their feathers, is called insolence. And so they can disciplinary you, right? And so something as simple as taking your art supplies, something as simple as restricting you from going to class. You be trying to figure out, hey, where's the brother? Oh, he didn't move fast enough. And so getting this art out, sharing this book with the world, carving out the rights, and then people talking about them, because slavery is still legal with conviction. Let's be clear about that, right? And so when people say some people make a connection, I say it's a clear connection, right? Slavery consisted of, I want to produce a product without having to pay them. And I want them to work for me, and I want to whoop them if need be if they don't work. Guess what? In prison, you work for $14 a month, right? $10 a month state paid. They gave me $10 a month. And during the Civil War, the Buffalo Soldiers received $10 a month for salary for fighting, right? And so how are we in 2021, right? And you go look at the salaries and they saying, what's going on? They're slaves. And so slavery is illegal up until conviction. This is why art is important, so that we can share those messages while not at the same time not offending the keepers who have the keys. Until we get the keys out of their hands, we have to be gentle, right, and respectful. And that's why I tell people, I practice respect, responsibility, ownership, community, and empathy with everyone. I carry a bucket of water with me across every bridge I cross, because I know how easy it is to set a bridge on fire. But I might need to run back across that boy, so I don't want to burn it up. And so we have to understand our job. Our job is to educate. That's why I love the fact that, yes, I walked into prison not able to read and write. I could not congregate a verb. I could not spell apple, right? But I walked out by the grace of God, right? With the ability to articulate myself and being the founder of the groundbreaking program within the walls of the Illinois Department of Correction called the Building Block, which we formed groups where we begin to educate ourselves and we begin to help brothers earn their GEDs. We were tutoring college students, right? We had the veterans group. We had the man's youth think tank, and I can go on and on. So when people say to me, like, why do you go and speak as much as you do? Because I want people to know that I may have committed an offense that's an offense, but I'm not a monster. I just was broken. I was a drug addict that was a teenager with the mental capacity of a 12-year-old, but the freedoms of a 30-year-old, smoking PCP, fantasizing about running from my pain. I did not know I needed a therapist. I did not know I needed sobriety. I did not know when my brother put a 12-gauge shotgun to my chest and shot me and killed my auntie, killed my cousin, and shot 6 other family members. I didn't know he was broken. As a juvenile offender, he's now in prison with life without the possibility of parole. I think he should come home, because our children shouldn't be raised in prison cells. And so, yes, he's been held accountable. He's done over 40 years in prison, 45 years, right? Because this was in the 70s. But my point is, victims can become victimizers. And people have to understand those different narratives, what causes people to commit offenses. And so corrections do have a responsibility to taxpayers and say, if we're going to lock people up, then we need to educate them. We need to give them access to prepare themselves for the re-entry. And so I don't want to start preaching because I'm a natural preacher, but I do want to say to you all, this is a joy to me. I love the fact that I can actually say to people, listen, if you care about justice, then you need to open the door and look in there and see the sewage and smell it for what it really is, right? When people talk about defund, I say, well, how about not defunding? How about reallocating? I know a different word, right? Let's take this money over here. Let's not defund them, because the captors are the ones that suffer when you defund, right? But when you reallocate and say, we're going to put the money in the incarcerated citizens' best interest and not in people that are benefiting from being a keeper of a broken person. So anyway, I don't know if I answered your question, but I'm sorry. I want to make sure I leave room for sister, but I'm just saying, if there's a question I didn't ask, I'm sorry, but I'm just excited.
We're excited to have you. And I got to say, you were asking, how were you supposed to follow up Aaron? My question is, how do I follow up you? Because that was amazing. And I also wanted to say, preach on, because I mean, I think a lot of the questions have been rolling into the Q&A box as well, just about what is it like, you know, behind bars in terms of like rules for materials and tools? How do you express yourself when you have all these roadblocks? And also questions about after your release, like how do you readjust? Sade was posing another question about in terms of like the mental health issues and like that transition from one very different being and state of mind to another. So I think you've provoked a lot of important questions here. I have my own, but I just wanted to throw those out there as well.
Hey, can I say really quickly, I have a therapist, because like I know I have a bunch of stuff to unpack, right? Even though I was able to swim through it, I was in a sewage. Prison is a sewage. We need to understand it for what it really is. Now, occasionally the toilet gets flushed, right? but it's still a sewage. You wouldn't want to eat out of a toilet, will you? Right? And so people have to understand this is why it is imperative that we get our children, and I say children because in prison, people have to understand this. Grown people are treated like children. You are conditioned to be a dependent. You depend on them for everything. When y'all gonna run commissary? When y'all gonna let me get a shower? When y'all gonna run child? When y'all, and then you get to your out there, they say, now go be responsible. Well, if you conditioned me to be a slave, because that's slave mentality. We'll feed you when we feed you. You know that. Shut up. Quit asking about things that's above your pay grade. How dare you want to file a grievance? How dare you want a full paintbrush? I did not know that paintbrushes was this long, right? Like, see how long I got? I was used to those little cut off, right, pieces of a stick that I painted with. Now I got access to real paintbrushes. Alice Kim brought me some paintbrushes and I was like a big kid because I was like, hey, these things are balanced. And now I get to like really express my emotions and I don't have to fear what I paint. I don't have to like, okay, let me suppress like this expression, you know? And so, listen, we get it done by things like this, moments like this, where we can say to people, hey, don't cry about it, be about the work, right? If you care about what's being done or not being done, then get in the work. And you can always go to these different websites. I tell people all the time, like, because I'm the director of education at Illinois Prison Project, right? Contact the Illinois Prison Project and ask, what can I do to help? Check out our reading list, check out our call to action, right? I tell people there's much work. Scripture says, many are called, but few are chosen, right? The harvest is plentiful, but the laborers are few. I'm looking for laborers. That's why I show up. I want laborers to say, I'll join you, Renaldo. What are we going to do? Because I'll say, I'll tell you.
That's great. Thank you so much. And I see more questions even rolling in after that, some related to what the atmosphere is like within prison and in what ways have you seen art change that atmosphere? And I just had another part of a question. Really, it comes from the book, again, in that great interview that you had with Alice Kim. Part of my question was about, because this is a class that is full of students who they're interested in activism and art, obviously, but they want to make real change in the world. So you had said near the end of your interview, you know, it costs to be an activist. It costs to be a voice for the people. So for those of us here tonight who consider themselves activists or who want to get involved in activism, and maybe they haven't really like taken the leap yet, what does it cost and why is it worth it?
It costs, it actually presses out your character. That's one cost, right? Because first of all, people will say, how dare you? Like I did an interview talking about life sentences. And I did not know that you shouldn't go and read the comments from the paper because I was naively saying, oh, this was a wonderful interview, right? And so I seen these comments. I'm like, hey, I bet these comments are going to be awesome. And to my great surprise, man, they was beating me up decent, right? And they was calling me all kind of monsters, you beastly. I mean, they were just going really, really hard. And then I remembered, I said, you're right. Thank you for reminding me of the cost of speaking out after being responsible for the crime that I was convicted of. However, I have to not walk in fear, because the only way change is going to happen is people have to see that transformation is possible. And so once you see me, I don't come off as a monster because I'm not a monster. I'm a human being that fell in a hole, got dirtied up, and it was only when people started to clean me off and threw me a bar of soap, right? And then they threw me a rope and said, come up out of that hole and go get in the shower and clean yourself up. And let me open this book for you and show you words like integrity. Let me show you words about turn around and do the right thing. And so it costs, because people will try to shame you from standing with people that might smell a little bit. You may have a little darker skin. How dare you like those colored people? Like, how dare you hang around those people? They're born to be prisoners. They're nothing but gangbangers and drug dealers and pimps and whores, right? No, we're human beings equal with the ability to cause great things to happen in the world. from Barack Obama to Renaldo Hudson, I say, right? Right? Because that's my man, right? But I'm like, I'm standing in my own shoes and I don't want to stand in anyone else's shadow. I want to make room for someone to try to get in my shadow. And so I know that if you don't love yourself, it costs to learn how to love yourself, right? It costs to stand up and, like Dr. Darrell would always tell us, boy, you better keep your head up. Don't you bend down and let them stand on your back, right? Keep your back straight, right? And walk up. Boy, I know you messed up, but get up and do something, right? Write a poem, write to your mother, and write to your sons, write to your daughters. Like right now, I'm working on an idea to speak to youth to let them know, man, I love you. I'm not going to judge you because you're broken. I'm just going to tell you a story, and hopefully it'll trigger something in you to make you say, I am better than knocking your brains out because I have no appreciation for myself. So if you're going to get in this movement, then you got to stand next to people that might not smell well. They might not look well, but they can get well if you give them a hand. And so it costs, because I'm telling you, people will try to shame you. Like, we need people that care to be judges, lawyers, like people that's in law enforcement, because the police ain't going nowhere. You could preach till you turn blue in the face. I think we're going to have law enforcement for years. So I want to see young people that love me stop the car and say, hey, Mr. Hudson, I'm Officer so-and-so. I don't want to disrespect you, but you missed the right turn. I said, oh, I'm sorry, sir, or ma'am, right? I don't want to see outlaws with badges because we're ashamed of going into lawful situations and being honorable people. We need people that love us, and it costs because people will try to shame you out of, man, you're going to be the man. Yeah, I want you to be the man. I want you on the bench when my son or my nephew come before you and you say, I think there's a chance of him being rehabilitated or her being rehabilitated. I ain't going to throw the key away on you. So it costs. And if you brave, step up.
And I got to say, I have worked with some of our incoming freshmen who are criminal justice majors, and they are very much dedicated to social justice and activism. And it's really a heartwarming thing to see, and hope that that change is on the horizon, like you said. Well, thank you so much, Renaldo. That was amazing. We'll have time at the end as well for a few more questions that have popped up in the meantime. But I would like to move on and give the floor to Ms. Atsia Fair, who is a working mother of 6 sons, including carving out rights contributing artist Darrell Fair. Ms. Fair was born and raised in Arkansas and started working on a farm at the age of 7. After moving to Chicago, she spent 33 years as a CTA bus driver. While working and raising her children, she studied at Kennedy King College and Governor State University, our own, earning a bachelor's degree. So welcome, Ms. Fair. Thank you so much for joining us tonight. And I think you're gonna have to hit the unmute button if you see where that button is on the, I think it's on the bottom.
Can you unmute her as the host?
Oh, good point. Yes, ask to unmute.
Unmuted. There you go. Grab this. Pretty good.
You're good now.
Okay, thank you for that introduction. But there's no way I can even begin to compare with Ronaldo's statement. Everything is so very prevalent to life and to humanity, especially people of color, that you said. We have endured a lot. We need people that will, and that are willing to take the risk of showing up and showing out for us, you know, and I really admire all of your accomplishments, and, you know, just keep going. I love our people, and we've endured, like I said, so much for so long. And it's time for a change. You know, I look at what's going on today and all of the mass murders and whatnot. And like you say, people are broken because they think it's okay. But we have to try and reach them and do something to get them to turn their lives around. Because as one of the professors at Governor State used to say, you know, we're on the ship together and sink or sail. You know, if it's sink, we all go down together. If it's sail, we all sail together. So we've got to learn to work together. And you know, you had me literally almost in tears. And there's nothing I can say to compare what you've said already. So, you know, it's a wonderful thing having you advocating for those that can't advocate for themselves. All of them. I appreciate Aaron. He had been in court with me and, you know, at Darrell's graduation, he graduated as well. And, you know, it's a wonderful thing having Rebecca allow us to come before and share with her class what we've been through. I've been through a lot, but not nearly what you have, because growing up on the farm wasn't easy. And I didn't get a good education because many times I worked instead of going to school where I should have been. And, you know, it said that he who starts behind must forever remain behind or run faster than those that started in the beginning. So I started behind, and believe me, Renaldo, and the rest of you, I still feel like I'm behind in so many ways, but I'm still pressing forward. Yes, yes. I appreciate you having me here and to say the few words, because like I said, there's nothing I can say that would really make a difference. But hopefully, with me joining here and hearing something may resonate in me that I can pass on to those that are out there that are younger, and let them know that, you know, you do have people on your side. You don't have to just do anything, you know. There's so much that could be said, but I would rather you continue to talk, although, because you have it together. You really do. You really do. Darrell had been in there a long time, and not just him, but you know, there are those who have lost their lives in the prison system, and you know, it's not a pleasant experience that we've encountered throughout the ages. It's not pleasant. It's not pleasant walking into the prison to visit your loved one, because you know some of the guards there treat you as though you are the inmate. I've been treated as such, and you know, I'm sure I'm not the only one. But it's worth going through whatever you have to go through to get a chance to spend a few minutes with your loved one. And see them have a meal maybe that they like, something that, you know, perhaps it's not the best, but it's the best that you can do with what you have to work with. So it's amazing. It's amazing. The impact it have on the family. It leaves you empty. And the crime, the punishment often does not fit the crime that they're there for. And it's painful to think that another human being could do this to another human being, It's very disturbing and stressful. So, we have to work together and figure out a way to make changes. I don't know what it is, but I know that, like you said earlier, education is the key. I have a 4-year-old grandson, and I'm trying to help him. His mother's don't have him in school, and I know the virus and whatnot is a prevalent part of that. However, he needs to learn everything he can. I have a couple of sons that did. They were always in school, and they're both doing well. And I want my grandson to be able to do the same, that he's not in school yet. He's not in school. And of course, I worked with alphabet and counting numbers. I have written the numbers up to 110. Grandma, that's too many. But we have to keep working on this, because change can come. Martin Luther King said he'd been to the mountaintop and he looked over, and we have to be able to see and to try and reach the other side of the mountain, because I believe it's achievable. But we have a while to go yet. We have a great while to go yet. I hope that every child can get a good education and get a good foundation. That was my problem. I went to school, and it was a church that was divided into 2 rooms. And my first instructor she taught 1st through 4th grade. And the other section had, was a 6th through 8th. And that's not a good picture when you're talking about all the children that are there. You miss out on so much. You really do. I still feel as though I didn't have a good foundation, but I'm still reading everything I can and doing the best I can. So you're not alone in facing life and life's hardships without having, but you overcame, and I'm proud of that. It's a blessing. It's a real blessing. I don't know what else I can say, like I say too.
Ms. Fair, thank you so much for sharing. I know this must be incredibly difficult to share, especially in such a public forum, but clearly I assume it's important to you. So one of my questions was, why is it so important to you to share this personal experience that you've been through, that you're still going through?
It's important for me to share, to let people know that they can overcome. Like Renaldo said, you can face anything with, people like him that will give you hope and inspire you. And the chance that Aaron and the team have shown to the inmates and taught them art, and the graduation. You know, you can overcome anything, but you know, you have to be offered an opportunity to do that. And you all are given that, an opportunity to make change and to face life head on. It's wonderful. And thank you all for doing that.
Another question that, oh, I'm sorry, were you about to say something?
Go ahead, go ahead.
Okay, so another of my questions, which actually kind of corresponds to a question I just saw pop up in the chat box, is about what do you want people to know who maybe have never been inside of a prison or have never been close to someone who's been incarcerated? What do you want them to know or understand about the impact on families? And what do you do to help sustain yourself in supporting your son and yourself and your family?
Right, well, I work wherever I can because I'm no longer at CTA. But in order to just mentioning the penal system, it's a bit overwhelming. The inmates, when they come out, Darrell had been out before, and you know, they go through culture shock because they have to learn everything all over again. Darrell blew up a microwave. He didn't know you couldn't boil an egg in there, that you needed to pluck a hole in. And it's the same thing with everything. It's not the same. The world is constantly changing. And they are not familiar with what life is like. The computer, cell phones, how to interact with others. They have to learn all of this over again. Yeah. It's a lot to ingest. And going there and having gates closed behind you is not a pleasant feeling. And to think of the inmates themselves being closed in and, you know, without the hope of ever being free again, that is tremendous on the inmate and on the family. So you have to keep fighting. You have to keep fighting.
Absolutely. I think that's key. And I'm so thankful that you're here to share your very difficult story with us. We so appreciate it.
I thank you for having me because it's a wonderful thing being able to relieve the burden on me because it's painful. It's very painful, you know, dealing with the fact that my eldest son is locked away and, you know, the system is skewed, unbalanced, and, you know, you never know what's what. And when we went to court, one of the things that reading one of a big book my sister sent me. Right now I can't think of the title, but you know, most times the penal system, all of them, they work together, and you have to go many times, maybe until you get to a higher court in order to get some help, some real help to get out, you know. And it can be painful because they work together, and there were witnesses that were supposed to show up, and I'm sure that they were discouraged from showing up because, you know, it would have been beneficial to him. And that tears you down. It tears you down. And I know you all can hear, I'm almost in tears. But what can you do? And how can we fight? And what can we do to make a difference? You know, tell me, I will do whatever I can to. Because my son, like I said, is not the only one that's enduring this. There are many, many, far too many. The system is broken and need to be repaired.
But I think you're absolutely right. Having everyone speak out with whatever voice they have in whatever context they are working in, whether it's through their art, their teaching,
Yes.
As a parent, as a friend, to advocate for those who can't advocate for themselves as freely. Well, thank you again so much for sharing with us. We do have a couple of other questions in the chat box that looks like a few of them were for Renaldo, but some of them might be more generally for everyone on the panel. So I'm just going to go back to the first one I noticed, which was from one of my students, Carlette. She was asking, was Renaldo an artist? And I guess the question would go to Darrell as well. Kind of curious, were you artists prior to being sent to prison, or did you learn art as a part of this program in particular and now have just continued it because of the program you were involved in?
Who is that question for me? Or
yeah, for
Aaron?
you, yeah, or if Ms. Fair wants to talk about Darrell's experience, but.
Well, I will yield to Mother.
An artist. Darrell was not an artist. He learned from his instructors that taught him there. And you know, I've often heard that he's very patient and he's hardworking, and he does some beautiful work, and I'm proud of him and all of those that work with him.
I would just say that, you know, Darrell is, you know, for it's surprising that Ms. Fair says that he, you know, wasn't an artist, because, you know, he is an extraordinary artist in class, and he's always teaching other students and encouraging other students, and always pushing kind of to the max, you know, like he, you know, he's somebody that's looking for critical feedback and wanting to improve and wanting to get better. And I also just want to say, you know, what Ms. Fair said about hope. And, you know, it was a really, Darrell, as Ms. Fair mentioned, had his case was being looked at, and they recently closed that again. And, you know, that was a really hard hit, and really hard. And I had been talking to Darrell, and he just held so much positive strength. You know, it wasn't, you know, and he's a positive force in every space. And I think that then comes out in his artwork. And I'll yield to Renaldo.
Listen, I can tell you that I'm not a scientist, but I am a very reflective human being. And what 37 years of incarceration taught me was that they couldn't press the hope out of me. Because my belief is real simple. There's a God that sits on high that looks down low. And the eyes of the Lord looks to and fro the earth to see whose heart is made perfect toward him, that he may show himself strong. And so I live with men that were waiting to die. You know, when my transformation begun, I thought to myself after being, and I'm gonna tell y'all this, and don't y'all tell this to no one else. My friends on death row had a birthday party. And I went to the yard and no one was on the yard. And when I came back to go to the shower after going to the yard, one of my friends, right, was in the shower next to me. I said, man, where was everyone? He said, man, we was at the party. And I said, why y'all didn't tell me? They said, hey, man. They said, man, they didn't want you at the party, man. I said, hey, wait a minute, man. I said, technical file, what are you talking about? They say, dude, man, you a bug, right? They say, all you want to do, man, is you radical and you just want to fight the man, you know, you just going off, right? And so I'm saying, so y'all gonna disinvite me to a death row party. I said, I'm gonna be on the diss list of the death row party. And so it sparked in me an idea that, man, maybe something might be wrong with you, Renaldo, the way you are approaching life, right? Because the people that was condemned by the whole world, like the whole state of Illinois say, all y'all is just, we can't fix none of y'all. So we're just gonna exterminate you. Think about that, because in the midst of all of that, how does hope exist? I'm saying hope exists because there's still light. And anywhere light exists, there's life. And that's why I try to keep people remembering is that I know hope deferred makes the heart sick. So when those appeals are denied, I can tell you, brother, I sat through 7 governors in prison, and I can name every one of them, right? Until Governor Pritzker said, right, Quinn, with everybody talking about how liberal, and he kicked me in the teeth and said, I don't believe in rehabilitation, right? Rauner, I mean, all of them, you can go all through, back through them, Thompson, Edgar, they wasn't saying to people, you should have hope of being better. And under my administration, I'm going to invest the taxpayers' money in making people better. The devil is a lie. But Pritzker, the fixer I call him, right, said, hey man, I see the rehabilitation in you. And I don't think anyone who's been in prison 30 years and has a track record of fighting through all the bookie, I won't use the bad word, right? But fighting through all the smelly stuff and saying to my peers, hey, we're better than this. That's why a brother can say, keep a positive attitude, because we was in training in a war. Death row was a war, make no mistake about that. And so all the men and women who went through that experience, right, have this sense of, wait a minute, I made it through that. Y'all couldn't kill me. That's why, like, I did 13 years on death row, watched 12 executions. When the executions used to occur, I used to turn everything off because I wanted to hear. I wanted to hear the insanity of a state saying to me, we're going to kill you because you killed, right? I'm like, I can do basic math. The lesson is kill me because I killed someone, right? Not, wait a minute, dude, you have to be better than us. We're going to be better than you. And we're going to see if we can fix what went wrong. No, they're like, no, we'll just exterminate you. And then they compared us all the same. From the John Wayne Gacy to the Renaldo Hudson, the only distinction they made was the level of poison that they were going to put in our bodies. And so that made me sit, when I was sitting in this, I said, wait a minute, I'm better than this. Yes, I'm responsible for taking the life of Mr. Folk Peterson. I always own that because his life deserves so much more. That's why I've consecrated my hands to love. That's why I consecrated my mouth to love, so that everywhere I go, he's remembered that the price of my rehabilitation was his life. And so I understand that. That's why I don't get puffed up. But I remember there's so many people left behind. And if people don't see someone shine, they won't say maybe someone else can do it. So someone has to say, listen, hit the ground running. And that's why when I came out, yes, technology is making me laugh and go crazy. Because I'm like, oh man, I be what they call calling people when I, like text them, they be like, Renaldo, why did you text? I said, I don't know, I was playing with the phone. But I'm learning because I'm not shy, and I'll ask, hey, excuse me, can you help me do this? Right? And so for me, like all the young people, like I see, say, come here, explain this to me. Like, why this thing keep doing that? That's hope. When I look into and hear a young person say, Mr. Hudson, would you explain this to me? I'd be like, absolutely. Because to those that much is given, much is required. And so I've been given a tremendous amount of grace. And I'm saying to all my peers that's left behind, I haven't forgotten. And that's why I'm doing the work that I'm doing, because I believe we can bring the soldiers home. I just do. And so when people ask me, why do you have hope? I have hope because of people like you all that are saying, hey, come talk to us. Would you come to our event? I'm like, yes. All right. Because I got something to say.
Yeah.
Like the people that don't have nothing to say is the people that need to shut up. But I'll keep telling people, this is a love fest for me. It is hard work that is hard work, if you follow me.
Yeah.
It's hard work that is hard work. And
Yeah.
that's why I tell people, like, my heart is invested in rehabilitation. That's why I was on the panel yesterday with the Department of Corrections doing a town hall about the vaccination, right? Talking to my peers about, man, take the shot. You need to understand you need to protect yourself. You need to understand that you may come home to a mother who you will make vulnerable because you brought the virus back because someone brought it into you and you didn't get the shot to build your system up. And so working within these spaces isn't a sellout. It's actually an obligation.
Yeah.
It's an obligation. Like, we can't keep turning people off that's in power. We have to figure out where we put the light on them and say, hey, what y'all doing in there? We want to know. So anyway, yeah, go to your real question. I'm sorry. I was an artist. I just didn't know that I had the artistic ability to articulate an idea that would spark someone to say, hey, there's something better than you than punching people. There's something better than you than robbing people, and on and on and on. I say for all of my peers who don't have this opportunity, we're sorry that we wasn't better people. For all the men and women, for legal reasons, they can't say it. Renaldo Hudson will say for you, I will stand in the gap. I'm sorry, mothers. I'm sorry, sisters and family, that we wasn't better. But there's hope. Look, your son is home, and I care, and I choose to love you. Mama, I love you. And I'm telling you, we are going to win. Love always wins. Perfect love casts out fear. That's why I'm not afraid, but it costs. No one goes to war without counting the cost. We're at war. Y'all need to know that.
Yes. Yes. I know the trauma of war. My grandfather was in World War I. His son was in Vietnam. I had two sons to go to war. The one is right here now. He was in Yugoslavia, Bosnia crisis. Then I had one that was in Desert Storm. So, it's nothing nice. You're right. My uncle was wounded and we didn't even know where he was, that was in Vietnam. And finally the Red Cross found him in China or somewhere, in the hospital. But he survived to come back to the States, and they say he committed suicide. But I heard a lot about the war, especially Vietnam. And like you said, Renaldo, it wasn't pretty. It wasn't pretty.
Yes, ma'am. But listen, y'all have to remember, like, things are changing. Like when you look at Black Lives Matter, when you look at the youth stepping out is so courageous. I'm like, I love them, right? Listen, Sam Cooke has a song, there's a time when I thought I wouldn't last too long, right? Sam Cooke reminded me now, right? I find myself being able to carry on, right? It's been a long time coming, but I know, Lord, change gonna come. Oh, yes, it will. And I turn to my brother, right? I turn to my brother and my mother and I say, help me, please. So I'm telling y'all, this is real. We are going to win if we just don't surrender. Don't surrender the territory. Mama, I'm standing with you and I'm telling you, we're winning. It seems like they're winning, but they're scared because people are speaking up and saying, we want our sons and daughters released. And people are coming home. Yeah. Don't make me bust out into a song because I'll do it.
Love it. I think a great way to kind of wrap it up tonight, because I'm just keeping an eye on the time here. And really, I can't follow that act. Sam Cooke, are you kidding me? But one of the last questions that I saw in the Q&A box was, how can GSU be more involved and more supportive of teaching at Statesville? And I would extend that to those who are still incarcerated, to your projects, Renaldo, yeah. And this is a question for all the panelists.
Get in where you fit in, right? I fit in the Illinois Prison Project, right? I'd say to everyone, listen, that is an awesome organization. Check in with us. You may be a reader, you may be a researcher, you may be able to help file a clemency for someone, right? They're pen pals, like solidarity letters, right? I say to people, like, check out and find people and do video visits and just say, listen, I don't know you, but I just want to send some love your way, right? And keep it really clear, have clear boundaries so that you understand like all of the brokenness that you may encounter. But there's so much work. Get in where you fit in. Like, make sure you feel comfortable with what you're doing. I feel comfortable knowing that I have partnered with the Illinois Prison Project, and I can't say it enough. The executive director is Jennifer Sobel. Is the baddest lawyer in the world. I love that organization, right? Because they got me out, right? But not only that, we're 40 in. They've brought 40 people home that had life without the possibility of parole and different sentences equal to that. That's only because someone decided I can make a difference. And so if you don't think you can make a difference, then just try filing a petition in behalf of someone. Write a letter, right? Call the governor, right? I'd say, then call the governor, say, hey man, let all the veterans go. What you waiting on, right? We got all these people. What, let these women go. You want to know what you can do? Make a phone call. You want to know what you can do? Solicit some lawyer to refile in behalf of that brother petition that was denied. And so let's get the work did. And if you can't do nothing else, instead of giving Starbucks, right, all that money, give it to one of these organizations that's putting in the work. I have to tell you, the Illinois Prison Project is a wonderful program, and all the proceeds go to helping people come home. Real talk from the Director of Education, and I love all of y'all, but I'm just saying, IPP.
And I guess I'd expand on that, because there's a lot of good groups doing amazing work, and ILCHEP, Illinois Coalition for Higher Education in Prison, is a really important coalition of all the different education projects in prisons. And if there's an interest in GSU getting involved in that work, then that's a good place to start, is reaching out and talking with them and coordinating with them. And then I would also just say, I wasn't involved with PNAP when it first got started. Sarah Ross, who helped co-found it, the project had done some work in Danville, Illinois, when she was down in Champaign-Urbana. And when she came up to Chicago, I know someone, I don't remember this story exactly, but I know someone reached out and encouraged her to go out there, because at the time there wasn't really any other education projects. I believe there was one other education humanities project specifically, because PNAP is specifically a humanities and arts education. We do, when we work with University Without Walls, which is through Northeastern Illinois University, which is how Darrell got his bachelor's degree. We do make sure that the credits around math and other things are there, but just kind of breaking it down, that I know that someone encouraged her to start going out there and follow in Dr. Burroughs' footsteps and get programs going, because a lot of the higher education programs left when Pell Grants stopped being able to be, during the crimes bill, they stopped being able to be offered to people that were incarcerated. And so building those relationships, calling the chaplain, becoming a volunteer. I know also another way groups have done it is, like, for PNAP itself, a few times that with tenure track professors, they've allowed, different universities have allowed their professor to teach a class through PNAP at Stateville and do that as one of their course load courses. So there's a lot of different ways that people have done it, and it's just really about getting into the weeds of it, building the relationships, and also the long haul. I think the hardest part is or what's, is, I know there's more and more prison education projects emerging, and I think it's just important that people ask what's their, why they want to do that work. And I know that PNAP comes at it from a Black feminist abolitionist perspective, and what does that mean is something I'm always learning because I'm not rooted in that history. But I feel like this conversation tonight, I think, is a great introduction to a lot of that work and that thinking. And I feel like organizations and institutions being really clear about why they're doing the work. Is it to make the system better, or is it to totally just is it to, as Renaldo might say, is it to make it a nicer toilet, or is it to actually like change the whole system around and make it about restorative justice? And I think that's a different conversation, and that takes a real amount of looking at our entire system, and that means hearing from those most impacted, which means more and more people doing this work is needed.
Yes.
Absolutely. And I did, if you haven't already seen, I dropped a couple of the websites into the chat box for those who are interested to get involved. Illinois Prison Project, ILCHEP, and PNAP. So I don't know what better way to conclude tonight's panel. Thank you all so much for participating. In the panel tonight, Aaron Hughes, Renaldo Hudson, and Ms. Atsia Fair. This was great. It was incredibly moving and very thought-provoking. I thank you also to the audience and my students and other GSU students for their questions as well. So thank you, everyone. Take care, stay safe.
Renaldo, Atsia, thank you so much. Such an honor to be on the panel with you. I know you 5 panels today, Renaldo and Atsia. I know it was no easy thing figuring all this out, and I'm really grateful that you were able to do all the work of making this happen. Thank you. It means a lot, and I hope it really touched people out there.
Hey, I would like to say equally thank you to everyone, and I send love. And now I have to go eat cake. Y'all be safe. I'll see y'all at the next event.
Happy birthday.
Thank you. I received that. Y'all be safe and be blessed.
And many more.
Thank you so much.
All right.
Good night, everyone.
Good night.